Thank you for joining us and happy Diwali, everyone. In that spirit, thinking about queuing up the fireworks and shining the light of extinguishing our problems, facing them, extinguishing them, and brightening your life. So in that spirit, welcome to the Aurora Institute Symposium 2022. Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Patrick, the CEO of Aurora Institute. I am so inspired to look across the country, to look around the globe and see the work that you're leading, illuminating a path forward. How education systems change happens at each and every level, and you're all part of a global movement for future-focused education. Our organization is nonpartisan. We work with everyone. We have a wide tent connecting educators, leaders, researchers, nonprofits, people on both sides of the aisle in state houses, people in districts and charters, programs and universities who drive change. At the Aurora Institute, we're focused on education innovation, transformation. Our mission is to transform education systems, advance breakthrough policies and practices to ensure high quality learning for all. So welcome. Please use the chat box and introduce yourself, where you're from, share any insights throughout the symposium, resources, ask questions, and respond to each other. We really find the chat box valuable. And on social media, we're #Aurora22. We'll record all of these sessions, all of the keynotes, and archive them on our website, so they'll be available. And for the sessions, you can find the Zoom links in your program book and in your email. If you have issues accessing any of the sessions or breakouts, just put in the chat or let us know. So here's an overview of our symposium agenda over the next 3 days. You can check out more details in your program book, and again, get the links for each session. It's 3 days of a condensed agenda, so please take time for self-care. We're so grateful to the students, presenters, all of you attendees for being here, sharing your time, sharing your expertise. It's you who's made this event possible, and we thank you. And now our opening keynote is Igniting a Vision for Education Systems Transformation, Future Directions. We'll set the stage for the next 3 days. Aurora Institute works on policy, promising practices in education innovation, research, events like this. Our work began as NACOL, iNACOL, and now we're Aurora. And we began with a focus to expand access to high quality online learning and blended learning to really change to more student-centered learning environments. We published quality standards on online learning and online teaching. And we've been working on shifting policies from seat time to competency-based education, funding to support students in their pathways, address fundamental policy shifts for competency-based ed to recognize learning that happens anywhere, anytime. We also realized that in examining these next generation learning practices, innovative pedagogy, seeing outdated funding models, time-based credits, we've uncovered a lot of system failures in the United States. In trying to make student-centered learning a reality for every student, we've learned that delivering online courses in the old frame is not enough. We love our roots in education innovation and build on those. And we acknowledge that we've grown and moved to a higher purpose beyond just delivery towards bigger changes addressing systems failures. What we saw during the pandemic, this one size fits all delivered on Zoom or on a screen, technology alone layered over the old systems won't work. We need to address the system's failures, move to competency-based education, and then use advanced technologies to be enabler of a more powerful future of teaching and learning, pinpointing the gaps students have, increasing access to resources. All of this needs to be on a competency-based education frame, getting every student what they need, getting every student to mastery, building knowledge and skills, innovation for equity, getting every child what they need. Our vision at Aurora is a world where all people are empowered to attain the knowledge, skills, and dispositions necessary to achieve success, contribute to their communities, and advance society, an open and just society. And we can't get there by continuing to tweak the status quo. It's the Symposium, and I am so inspired by the great work happening. And you see it all across the program. But I want to give a few shout outs. So Building 21 in Philly, and go Phillies. Your sessions on learning studios and how students conduct investigations with competency-based pathways, how you do this work. I just want to say and share that Building 21 has created competency frameworks which they've made openly available and share with the field. So thank you. That's been really helpful. Shelby County, Kentucky is sharing how their personalized blended professional development, professional learning happens. North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota are all in the process of making the shift to student-centered competency-based education. Districts like Spring Lake Park in Minnesota and others are sharing their journey. New Hampshire Virtual Learning Initiative. You've helped so many districts get started across the country with competency-based ed. I love that you're using our 7-part competency-based ed definition to help plan and design and provide on-ramps. These and 60 plus more sessions, we're looking forward to them. And more than 40% of our sessions have students on their panels. Change is happening and it's real, and it's because of you. Thank you. Take some time to reflect and think about how much is changing. Thanks for being here and coming together. And you're not alone. You'll see this work is happening globally. And the good news is parents want it. A study showed 91% of parents want education reimagined, 61% strongly. They want it to be reinvented for the whole child and personalized. So in this morning's keynote, we have 5 goals. We're going to explore the flaws of the traditional system, look at definitions, what student-centered learning looks like, what the vision is, what states can do, and how you can get started. I'd love to share with you what I'm hearing from across the field too. An educator told me, Susan, this whole pandemic and the school closures, we can feel the old industrial system closing in on us. We know we need change. Another educator, we have to avoid Band-Aid solutions that just tweak. A Harvard professor, getting rid of time constraints is the single biggest barrier. It forces ranking and sorting of students into a de facto caste system. A de facto caste system. Maybe this is a technical challenge in policy, but it has important implications for significant change. And a Capitol Hill staffer said to me recently, a Hill staffer that worked on writing No Child Left Behind, accountability in the US is unchanged in 21 years. The frame we thought we created is not leading to improved results. Our system is designed for hierarchy, to rank and sort kids, to weed them out. To weed them out. This morning, I'm setting the stage for what we're up against. This loss of learning time during the pandemic, kids coming in vastly different places, kids coming in behind, existed before 2020 or 2022. It's just more extreme now. But the traditional model never worked. It never worked to meet kids where they are and fill in their gaps and make sure the kids had what they need. What's good practice to meet kids where they are with whole child personalized learning approaches, this was never built into our one-size-fits-all traditional system. So we need to challenge this. We need to redesign so we can meet kids where they are and make sure they have what they need. The foundation that's focused on getting kids to mastery. Competency-based education systems are foundational to doing this. And to start the change, we have to understand the flaws of the traditional system. So we're here to learn together. I invite you to share your own perspective, name some of the flaws that you see of the current system using the chat. Let's look at the flaws of the traditional education system. Our schools award credits based on time. Learning is variable. There are learning gaps that students have. We know that we have students in 9th grade, sometimes coming in at a 4th grade or 5th grade math level, 6th grade, 8th grade. The approach is one size fits all. One teacher in one classroom teaching one lesson in one subject for 1 hour in one way to one age in one grade. Narrow metrics. Grading practices could really be strengthened to accurately report progress. Grading on a curve sends mixed messages. Grades with extra credit points outside of the knowledge and skills criteria. These common grading practices don't communicate actual learning and progress accurately. It's based on a fixed mindset, like kids are vessels to be filled, consumers of content, instead of generators of new ideas, problem solvers. It's based on extrinsic motivation, not building intrinsic motivation, and does not use the learning sciences or what we know on the research on how kids learn best. Flaws. We have data from studies and reports to make the case concretely on these flaws. We can talk about the remediation rates. Parents have different perspectives now after these school closures from COVID. They're much more aware of the flaws. They were firsthand witnesses to what their kids could or could not do. And parents don't actually know where their kids are. They should know, but they don't. Look at the disconnect here. This 2022 data from Learning Heroes report shows a disconnect between the perception and reality of student progress. 92% of parents thought their child is at or above grade level in reading and math. Today, we got new NAEP results, and they present the grim reality. Less than a third of our students are proficient. There's a Harris poll of students. Kids are in the dark on where they are in their learning. Less than 50% of students report getting any information on where they are, if they're on track to graduate, and don't know how much academic progress they've made. They're in school full time and they don't know where they are. I go to international conferences and I'm there with other adults from other countries with school-age kids, like 8 or 12 years old. They've been on the road 5 days, and I'm talking about what I work on. They pull out their phones and they say, look, I can see exactly where each of my child is, what project they just did, what learning objective they just did, what feedback they got from the teacher, where they are. Across the US, parents and kids are frustrated. Students are leaving without completing their education, walking away. America's public schools lost at least 1.2 million students since 2020. What flaws are you identifying? We have policy flaws too. We have false confidence in this one-size-fits-all industrial system. 21 years ago, certain experts had an old theory of change in K through 12 schools, top-down accountability, ranking and sorting, needed to give extra resources to poor schools. Can't we just address inequitable funding models? Do we really need to do this? Assessment that prioritizes comparability over reliability and validity is not culturally inclusive. Large-scale assessments tell us less than a third of students are proficient. But this is not driving a continuous improvement cycle of teaching and learning. It's not driving innovation. It's not getting all kids to mastery. It's not driving equity. It's not addressing long-standing racial inequity or addressing systemic failures and root causes. A system designed to serve few, not many, labeling, deficit frames, blame, Its frame is continuing a legacy, holding our kids back. It's still based on these industrial era roots, culling and sorting students, reducing their entire K-12 experience to a single GPA. Can you see how these policies hold kids back and diminish kids' own power to affect changes in their future? There's such a lack of student agency in traditional classrooms. 3/4 of students report never setting their own learning goals, never. But if we see it, we can address it. We need to ask deeper questions. What if we examine measuring quality learning experiences or time to mastery instead? Student agency. What if credits were based on demonstrating mastery and competence, projects, performance assessments, student work? What would a next generation credential or transcript look like? A meaningful credential that was world-class. Look at our high school diplomas. What do they actually tell us about what students know and can do? Students can know where they are and be more empowered to take ownership of learning. Parents can be informed with information and excited about the pathways available for their kids. How do we illuminate this path forward? Shifting to competency-based education systems and structures is fundamental. We need to ask our communities to help us. What are the flaws? We need to co-design with students, families, and communities and build a path for continuous improvement that seeks systems change. To do this work, we need to understand some key concepts. We've worked with hundreds of innovators in the field to create field-tested definitions. And our definitions are adopted in policy and legislation. And in practice, understanding definitions is important for the quality of your implementation. So with these, you'll know what our organization means when I'm talking about these terms throughout. And definitions are important. So here are the definitions that we're talking about. First, in 2011, we created with the field a definition for K-12 competency-based education, and it has 5 parts. 1, students advance upon demonstrating mastery through performance. That learning objectives are clear, measurable, transferable, and they empower students. Assessment is meaningful and a positive learning experience for students, empowering them. Students receive, if they don't get it, they're getting feedback that's immediate, timely, differentiated. So you're not going all the way through and having credit recovery. Think of unit recovery. When you set a goal, if you don't get it, you're getting immediate help in real time. And 5th, that the learning outcomes represent the broader range of foundational knowledge, competencies, skills, and dispositions. 8 years later, we realized as the field developed and deepened that we needed to update our definition. We had learned more about important elements of high quality implementation of competency-based education. So we updated to 7 elements. We included the original 5 plus added elements to emphasize student ownership, active learning, flexible pathways and pacing, and equity. I know it's hard to read. Students are empowered daily to make important decisions about their learning experiences and how they will demonstrate their learning. Students learn actively using different pathways, and varied pacing. Strategies to ensure equity for all students are embedded in the culture, structures, and pedagogy of schools and education systems. So it's important that we share what we mean by these terms. Now, personalized learning. Think of this as per person, per student. Personalized learning is an approach. It sits on top of a competency-based education system as its skeleton or foundation. Personalized learning recognizes the uniqueness of each student, drawing on their strengths, needs, and interests, voice and choice. How do personalized learning and competency-based ed fit together? Well, personalized learning approaches provide that flexibility, but should be built upon mastery and a competency-based education foundation to ensure rigor. All right, last term, student-centered learning is an umbrella term with both of these elements. And we use Nellie Mae Education Foundation's 4 elements to define student-centered learning. 1, student agency. Students have ownership of their learning. It's personalized, it's competency-based, and learning can happen anytime, anywhere. That's what we mean by student-centered learning. As Michael Fullan says, looking to the future of education requires challenging ourselves with sometimes competing or contradictory ideas in principled ways that will ultimately stretch our thinking on what is possible for equitable social innovations. Fullan also says student outcomes will only improve if educators have a deep moral purpose and the ability to develop highly personalized programs. He said, to make it more practical, first, ensure that educators commonly understand what these principles actually are and what it may entail to place personalized learning into practice. Renewing the vision of equal opportunity for all is an important concept grounding personalized competency-based learning. And finally, it's not new. Victor Garcia Hoz, the Spanish researcher, authored 50 books on personalized learning from the 1960s to the 1990s. He described personalized education as the learner's journey to developing their freedom of choice. Thanks for digging into these definitions with me. And leaders, I'm going to quote Joanne McEacham. Leaders, we don't need to get better at a bad game. We need to change the game. So what's the vision? Let me paint a picture of what's possible. What does this really look like for a student? Alicia is 14. She has a learner record, a learner profile, a personalized learning plan, a digital wallet to track progress on her cell phone. Her school has clearly identified learning goals in progressions with standards and detailed competency statements. There are clear criteria for assessing mastery. She sets goals daily. Her school has career explorations in every grade annually. Her learning can happen anytime, anywhere. Alicia knows she must provide demonstrations of mastery with evidence of her work. Alicia lives with her grandmother, who has sickle cell anemia. Alicia's interested and wants to research this more. Alicia's setting goals with her learning coach on a new project researching sickle cell. She's embedding science standards, health standards, math standards, ratios, percentage of population, demographics, and thinking about data displays and English standards. Her class has a genius bar where assessment is always open. She goes there every few days and works with her learning coach as she builds demonstrations of evidence of mastery in her project. She advances upon demonstrated mastery. And these credits will build on her learner record. The cool part is she has a digital portfolio and a digital backpack of her work over time. She's also building her own muscle at self-assessment. She's empowered daily, setting goals with voice and choice in learning and assessment. Grandma can see her progress on her digital record on her cell phone. The school has a dashboard. The school is expanding learning opportunities and the supports needed. Assessment is a positive experience. It's meaningful and relevant. Alicia graduates prepared for her future. She has the skills she needs to flourish. In that story, I want to emphasize transforming systems of assessments to align to student-centered learning is key. Empowering students and giving them agency is key. We must examine the role of assessments to support authentic learning. And assessment literacy, it's a whole field. Globally, there's a lot of focus on it. In the US, less than 1% of our schools of ed teach assessment literacy. Assessment literacy is the knowledge, skills, and processes associated with designing, selecting, implementing, scoring accurately, and or using high quality assessments to improve student learning, and the appropriate role of assessment in the learning process. Other countries, this is what they focus a ton of their energy and building capacity on, assessing for learning, assessment literacy. Guess what? Global best practices and assessments, equitable assessments, ensure all students have ample opportunity, time, and support they need to exhibit learning using multiple approaches to mastery. They're learner-centered. They support anywhere, anytime learning. They recognize learning that happens anywhere. In paid internships, work-based learning, community-based projects, powerful learning experiences online, blended, or in person. Recognizing learning happens anywhere requires some technical aspects too. Learning goals must be transparent. Helps to start with a profile of a graduate with power standards, competency statements for what students need to know and be able to do, with clear competency criteria to assess mastery. Holding all students to the same high standards with criteria to ensure equity, creating task neutral scoring, and have the ability to capture a range of learning. For cumulative validity, thanks David Conley, make valid judgments, calibrate scoring agreements for validity, and collect evidence of student learning over time. This infrastructure and processes requires professional judgment. It requires building capacity of educators and students alike. What are we doing in the US in K through 12 education if we are not ensuring that our adults are trusted to build these skills, engage what students have learned? In competency-based education systems, you have to have the ability to track progress with detail that's meaningful to learners every minute, every day. They know where they are. Students build muscle in self-assessment with criteria, inquiry, reflection. Educators can be skilled assessors. They just need time and training. Learning is recognized and validated from sources of student work and evidence in their digital learner record. For this vision of learning ecosystems towards human flourishing, we need to ask different questions about our current assessment systems. We need a new theory of change in assessment and accountability, beyond a snapshot, beyond an autopsy after the fact approach, beyond ranking and sorting. There's an important role of learner records for more transparency and competency-based credits. It's time to blow up the Carnegie unit using time. The challenge is it's a big mindset shift. We need a new theory of change for education. We need a testing and learning revolution looking to the future. What would a future look like for student-centered learning that had aligned policy and practice? Let's take a look at education in 2050. Charles is a high school student in 2050. He's 16. He's had a learner advocate supporting his family and him since he was 2, pre-K. There to support, advise from pre-K into K-12 into higher ed, helping the family navigate paths and different decisions for learning. Because now schools are learning centers or hubs in the community. There are innovative schools, districts, online and blended learning, micro schools, employer-based learning experiences. Learning's modular, it's powerful. They're personalized learning experiences, all part of the system, inside and outside of school. The community works with parents and students on a co-created vision of the purpose of the education. They create a graduate profile, then a systemic way to measure student progress over time based on competency development. Students show what they know, provide evidences of data and real-time learning. With a variety of learning experience, they're building knowledge, skills, and competencies that people really care about. This helps a student flourish and prosper over time. And that's a good thing, because in 2050, robots and artificial intelligence have already automated all rote tasks, jobs that can be done by machines, self-driving cars, and the like. We're starting to see it today, but 2050 is a very different way of living and a revitalization of what it means to be uniquely human is at the forefront of philosophical and societal debate. Charles, 16, has a comprehensive digital learner record. Badges for literacy, numeracy, reading, and math at different stages and levels. Badges for building knowledge and skills. Like a video game, he levels up by demonstrating mastery on projects and challenges. His learning is valued, whether it happens inside of school, outside of school, or online. Artificial intelligence is so advanced, it can detect learning in the process and offer feedback. For Charles, learning is highly collaborative. He sets his goals. Personalization requires developing meaningful projects and sharing roles, working with others. Because he can set goals and get immediate support for what he wants to develop next, real-time learning is intrinsically motivating and fun. He designs pathways alongside his friends. He can build credits through micro-credentialing. His learner advocate helped him identify a paid internship. So he's doing a paid internship at the local biotech lab on new areas of research based on his own interests in how robotics is changing the future of medicine. For his next project, he's planning a 3-week summer excursion out at camp on the river, also studying the ecology of waterways and sustainability. In education, interdisciplinary pursuits and challenge-based projects are the norm. There's shared leadership, co-creating, and collaboration with shifting roles. These are valued for creating adaptability, skills needed in the real world. These are the skills students will need to navigate in the future. What are your takeaways from these two stories? Please share in the chat. Globally, there's a major shift in advanced education systems moving to support learner journeys like these and focusing on building skills and competencies. Have you seen the OECD Learning Compass 2030? Competencies are at the center, learners taking responsibility. This graphic summarizes the research the OECD has done on advanced education systems. They're redefining success, engaged in curriculum redesign, emphasizing building foundational knowledge, competencies, and skills. The focus is on building student agency and empowering learners in their journey and in their pathways. There's also a move to rethink next generation credentials to be competency-based. Countries are creating a lifelong learning continuum at every level. There are articulations of competencies. It's part of the structure state and local governance recognized was required to build alignment and coherence. We're talking in 2050. A competency map for every degree and credential, K-12, higher ed, and even professional licenses are what every student, family, and educational institution uses as a roadmap. It's competency-based and criterion-based, formal and informal learning. Experiences can use assessment processes to match criteria on the competency roadmap and link to degrees and job credentials. Next-gen credentials are the currency of the future. They are owned by students and secure in blockchain. They're safe, private, and secure. Institutions serve students but don't own their credentials or records. This is envisioned fully personalized, competency-based education system aligned from pre-K through K-12 into higher ed into the workforce. So what have the community and state done? They've adopted a profile of a graduate to define success. They engage regularly to update it to ensure that communities, families, and the workforce share a vision of what students need to know and be able to do to graduate. So people like Charles will have the skills they need for their lifelong journey. Focused on competency development, which can be applied to and transcend any given subject. Charles lives in a community that has created an accountability system that is reciprocal. It started with a graduate profile. They interviewed students, families, workforce, community members to identify priorities, define what to measure, including learning experiences and expectations. Charles District is held on metrics defined by community connection, responsiveness, input, and in turn, the community plays a vital role in supporting the system and breaking down barriers of where learning happens. Local communities set performance metrics based on what matters to them. This isn't something new, actually, now, but it's new here in the US. I first learned about reciprocal accountability 6 years ago, studying in New Zealand. Quote, reciprocal accountability can support the building of consensus on a shared set of objectives and values for the system. Globally, there's a recognition of the limitations of too narrow performance frameworks for accountability. And there are balanced scorecards for quality assurance in many fields across the US. In fact, OECD countries studying education, transformation, there's been a move to expand accountability to a multi-dimensional approach, performance measures linked directly with performance assessment, values feedback from other sources, students, parents, communities, other stakeholders. Best practices globally in accountability, 3 things. Transparency, have a positive focus, and 3, invest in building the capacity of actors in the system to fulfill their responsibilities. In 2050, we can look back and see it just took the US K-12 education system and policy a long time to try to be more flexible to local needs and shift power to build new ways of sharing responsibility, not top down, inside out. And Charles loves school. It's not boring. He's empowered and a change maker. He believes in himself and cares for others. Learning's tailored to his interests, his goals, and relevant to his lived experience. And he feels known, cared for, challenged, supported, and loved. You can start to see what next generation learning looks like. You can start to see and feel what these learning ecosystems look like. What does the future look like to you? What would you add? I'd love for you to share. Please use the chat to share your vision of what the future looks like. So what's possible for change? What are the entry points and how do we get started on this vision? Competency-based education is absolutely crucial in advancing the future of education. And it isn't sufficient alone in the US. We can't keep the old rules, ranking and sorting. We have to challenge policy and the problematic relationship between credits, time, funding, the conditions and the policies that are holding these problems in place need to be shifted to support youth, pathways, and youth development. Our youth are capable. They're ready to take on challenges on issues that matter to them and their futures. And our youth, they will be the change makers of the future. We have to listen to our youth much more and what we need to be accountable for and why. For what kinds of learning matter to them, of what kind of assessments are meaningful for them. We're facing situations that are increasingly complex and greater needs. We have a one-size-fits-all approach from the early 1900s that fits no one. We need to change the game. We need a new game. And we don't need to wait for 2050. We can start today. And many of you have already started. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. So I get asked, what can states do to get started? What can states do to advance competency-based education? So let's take a look at how states are advancing supportive policy for competency-based education. In 2012, there were about a dozen states working to create credit flexibility, waivers from seat time credits, other ways to support competency-based ed. And interest continues to grow. It's been advancing. By 2016, more than half of the states were actively advancing policies to support competency-based ed. Started working on task forces and competency-based pilots and other initiatives to help build capacity in educators across the state. And 2022, 49 of the 50 states, every state except Wyoming, has advanced policies to support competency-based education. And hey, Wyoming, we know we've been working with you. We hope the map will be filled in soon. Know you're working on your graduate profile first and looking at competency-based pilots. So thank you, we're excited. All right, last map here. It's on innovative assessments. This brightly colored map, thanks to the Center for Innovation and Education, shows that innovative assessments, both in local networks and state work on performance assessments, capstones, competency-based assessments, this is really starting to pop across the country. So it's growing, it's starting to take hold. Systems change. What can states do? The good news is they have many entry points. States that are getting started, they're using the portrait of a graduate or profile of a graduate to set a new North Star, what students need to know and be able to do. They're creating innovation zones in Kentucky and Arkansas that give more space for schools and districts to really create future-focused, personalized, competency-based models, and then also surface the barriers and policy that get in the way. The state commits to removing those barriers and creating more enablers. There are competency-based ed task forces that states are using to identify assets in their state, make recommendations, and competency-based ed pilots, like in Washington State, the Mastery Learning Collaborative, where groups of schools and districts are coming together and working with their communities to co-design new competency-based education models. There's credit flexibility, moving from seat time and multiple pathways from graduation. And then states are getting more advanced. They're looking at what are meaningful credentials, and Mastery Transcript Consortium, proficiency-based diplomas, really working at innovating assessments, focusing more on competency-based assessments and performance assessments, looking at how to modernize their teacher workforce and diversify their teacher workforce, and more initiatives to build capacity to do this work. Colorado is looking at student-centered learning, accountability pilots, and Alabama is looking at how you align competency-based pathways across K-12, career tech ed, higher ed, into the workforce. More and more states are trying to look at the range of comprehensive policies to help align and provide coherence. In systems change, every system is designed to get the results it gets, and it will require these deep changes to a competency-based ed system to make the change. So everyone, can you share in the chat what policies are helping you advance competency-based education and what barriers are still in the way? But the work is not happening from the top down. The shift to competency-based ed is really from the ground up. It's educators and their communities working together to co-design. In practice, we estimate that 8 to 10% of school districts are planning or making the shift to student-centered competency-based education. And for practice changes, schools and districts, they can get started. They have local control. And in practice, you're going to see sessions throughout the symposium that will help people get started to make these shifts and share lessons learned and implementation strategies. So I'm going to be brief here and just know the next 3 days are going to be full of sessions on practice. But it starts typically with communicating with key people, stakeholders. When you start to move to a competency-based ed system or explore planning, it can be through various routes. Typically, first, there's a shared recognition that the existing system is not serving students adequately or equitably. Identifying those flaws. Typically, there are strong educators, school or district leaders who are inspired to move in this direction and begin to deepen their learning, seeking out resources, going on school visits, engaging in conversations. There's this first stage of understanding the why with your community. By first examining the why, the purpose, bringing in a wide variety of people who realize the system isn't producing enough of the types of graduates that the community envisions. Then redefining student success. It's really helpful to create a profile of a graduate. It forms the foundation for shifting to competency-based ed. In practice, building a community of innovative practice to learn from each other, which can involve the support with local, regional, or even state level competency-based ed pilots. Getting buy-in from students, parents, educators, and that can take time. It's really important. It's often a collaboration with various people and organizations across the ecosystem too. So that's kind of a 5,000-foot level view. Then there's the multi-year series of steps at the school level. And this afternoon and the next 2 days, we will go much deeper into it. But no, everyone does this differently. It's based on local wisdom. It's from the ground up. Co-designed with educators, students, and your community based on local needs. Together at Aurora, we share out lessons learned and summaries of the common elements here. And every day on our Competency Works website, we've got blog posts, site visit summaries, resources, more than 100 reports. So let us know how we can help meet you where you are in your journey. So Charles's story, Alicia's story may seem fictional, but it isn't. It's actually happening across the globe now. And I'm so thrilled that the presenters and the sessions over the next 3 days will provide real examples of this incredible work implementing student-centered learning. To engage in this innovation will require us to challenge the status quo and work to solve the problems with different thinking and consciousness. There's that quote, "Don't get good at a bad game." It's about systems change, and it doesn't have to be a puzzle. There's so much good work happening. Let's work on putting the ideas together, align, create coherence, come together to set a vision for the future. And we have hope because of all of the folks in the room for our symposium, our partners in this work. This is the last year our symposium is virtual. We'll be back in Palm Springs next year, and we want it to be a great inclusive experience for all of you. The field of competency-based ed is growing, and there are more faces. There's more to connect, build, share and practice, and learn across organizations. We welcome the opportunity in bringing in new people together to share and grow. Thank you for allowing us to host. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll enjoy it. You learn a lot and have some fun too. And don't worry, all sessions will be recorded and available. With this, welcome to the Aurora Institute Symposium. Thank you. We'd love to get your feedback, so please take our simple 3-question survey. It'll just take a minute, and the link will be dropped into the chat box in just a moment. So next up, we have a quick break and then breakout sessions this afternoon. After our break, the sessions will start up at noon Eastern. We'll have more breakout sessions at 1:15. And we'll have another set of breakout sessions at 2:30. And new this year at 3:30, I'm so excited. We'll close out today with book clubs, and there'll be conversations with authors. So that ought to be great. All right, thank you. Thank you for being here, and enjoy the break.